Omicron is a disease variant of what is attacking this planet that can still kill you. And if it doesn't kill you, it can still make you very sick. And again, like all the other variants, the majority of people who are carrying it and able to infect people don't show symptoms. And from all the other versions, we found out that getting sick with any variation of this disease from Alpha, Delta, or Omicron or whatever doesn't impart an immune system response strong enough to keep you from getting sick the next time. And there are, as of now, people who have gotten sick 5 times in a row, gotten no immunity out of it, and keep getting worse, or get bad, not as bad, then worse again. I think the largest number is 5, and it's somebody in New York City, and they won't release the name, but you get the idea. We're seeing anecdotal information about that, all the way to some of you know people who've gotten sick 3 or 4 times. And also there are people walking around who've been infected probably 5 or 6 times and never knew it. The disease has progressed and has become successful in the Darwin sense by infecting as many people as possible and adapting to whatever stresses it's experiencing. Can Omicron give you an immunity to Delta? This is based on a question that you've probably seen on the internet, based on a single study. Let's put this in perspective. It has not been peer-reviewed, and it came out about a week ago. It had data on severity that was preliminary and or incomplete at the time, and has not been updated. The sample size in this one study, it's the only study that's been brought up regularly by people, used only 13 people as test subjects, and over half of them were already vaccinated. Let me repeat that. People are seeing that individuals who got Omicron showed an immunity to Delta this far into the disease pathway where they could have just been exposed to it and maybe they gained some immunity. It's just not enough maybe to keep them from getting sick. And assumed that Omicron may immunize you. But the news stories fail to mention over half of these people had already gotten conventional vaccines. There's a group of people on this planet, I'm going to call them idiots, that would rather get potentially sick and maybe have a 1 to 2% chance of dying rather than getting a shot, a vaccine, that has a 0% chance of killing them. Now, I'm not saying that to be facetious. People keep trying to be scientifically accurate by saying things like there's no widespread fraud in elections or there's no hard evidence of death from eating strudel or whatever. While you're being scientifically accurate, your opponent is lying through their teeth, faking information, and talking about, storming Congress or attacking healthcare workers trying to save people's lives. That kind of irrationality you do not combat by being reasonable or scientifically accurate to the point you sound like an idiot. Getting a vaccination will not kill you, period, full stop. It doesn't matter if you want to create an example, well, there must be some deaths. All right, find them. And whenever I've asked that of people, they point to a glittering generality and some study that never cited its sources or was debunked a long time ago. There is no evidence that the vaccine has killed anybody. I'm saying that very firmly because there isn't any. I can't find it, and neither can you. There are incidents of people dying from being in a car wreck that are counted by anti-vaxxers to keep people from getting vaccinated. Vaccines don't cause car wrecks, by the way. There are cases of people getting sick, and we are seeing some illnesses. But the rate of illness in the general population from normal sources before we had vaccines was higher. The only thing you can come to a conclusion of is that people who get vaccinated are less likely to get those side effects. Or more accurately, it had nothing to do with the damn vaccine. And I find the news people being unwilling to say an absolute like there aren't any deaths recorded caused by the vaccine because they can't prove that. If you can't prove that someone died from a vaccine, you have to shut up. No, you're making a fantastic argument. But it's not a fantastic argument. Vaccines should cause deaths. Why? Why would you assume that even happens? And that's the thing. We have a bias here that people aren't willing to acknowledge. People want there to be both sides. If one side is saying there's a time-space tunnel in their underwear but won't provide proof, that is not an opinion we have to even address. And we want to keep them dressed. Seriously, I don't want to find out. No, the crazy talk people don't get equal time. That's not what equal time is based on. That's not what seeing both sides are. That's not a side. That's a side of crazy. So you have people who are willing to potentially have anywhere from a 1 to 2% chance of death by getting infected by Omicron rather than going out and getting a 0% chance of death from a vaccine. No, that doesn't sound right. Risk assessment abilities in some people are driven by them screaming things like a Karen in a freaking mall somewhere instead of listening to rational thought. The sample size was 13 people. 7 of the 13 were already vaccinated, but let's ignore that it might have been the vaccine. Data on severity was preliminary and or incomplete. The study was not peer-reviewed and still isn't, apparently, and has not been updated, apparently. I am optimistic, and that's a nice idea. And yes, eventually this should mutate into something that's less lethal, because if it doesn't, it's going to kill off its host and die. Most viruses do this. They turn into something less lethal. They become a pest rather than a predator. It was a small sample size study, and it has no merit until it's been corroborated. And we are not seeing literally, 0 checks on this that are completed or peer-reviewed or had large sample sizes because of the following. And let's give them a little bit of bone here. There wasn't a large sample size to work with. They couldn't find people who hadn't been infected before. They couldn't find people who could definitively say they've never tested positive for Delta. Maybe people are immune to Delta because they already had it but didn't know it, because, again, the majority of people who are exposed to Delta don't become sick. They become carriers. Meanwhile, the vaccine reduces your likelihood of death by a bizarrely large amount and reduces your likelihood of getting sick, again, a bizarrely large amount. You're less likely to get sick or die if you get the vaccine. And getting the vaccine, any of them at this point, makes it to where this disease is no worse and no more dangerous than the flu. It's as communicable as a head cold. It really is. But it can kill you like the flu can. That's bad still. And we have people who are saying, I'm going to use this as an excuse not to get vaccinated. These are the same people who would say, it's Tuesday, I'm not getting vaccinated. They don't need an excuse. They are not people who can assess risk and are not people who should be trusted to do so. Now, a public warning. Every one of you that's an anti-masker, anti-vaxxer, a rat licker, a person making this worse, your behavior on the internet is legally allowed to be included if somebody has a job that you're applying for and saying, I don't want people who can't assess risk without getting personally involved. This is a very good example of that. Your personal decision is personally involved. You're not allowed to do that when it comes to risk-taking at I don't want you flying an airplane because your ability to risk assess is crap. I don't want you being my doctor because your assessment capabilities is shit. Getting a vaccination is a ridiculously safe compared to getting Omicron or refusing to get vaccinated. Omicron gained natural immunity has a higher risk than getting a vaccine by a bizarre amount. And the vaccine does not have any proof of causing death or injury because none of you are able to cite any sources. And again, the vaccine injury pages that a lot of you point to are people who made claims concerning every vaccine. It wasn't about specifically the vaccinations you got recently. Period. Someone cited people who died in car wrecks as being an example of the vaccine killing them. Someone cited people who had a measles shot and got sick as being an example of the vaccine against COVID causing it. That side is not rational, screams crazy stuff, and does not acknowledge when they said something that was wrong. Therefore, that means they were lying. Retroactively make yourself a liar when you don't admit you made a mistake. Omicron is not going to immunize you. The vaccine will. Omicron has a risk of killing you. The vaccine does not. Again, no one who says it does will provide actual proof they didn't phony up. And every time I dig it up, every single fucking time, it's a lie. They just sat there and lied. The study that's referred to is ahri.org, WP-content, that's WordPress content, stop using WordPress, uploads /2021, and apparently 12 for December, MedRxiv, that would be Med, I guess, RX prescription, or medical, and apparently 4. is what it's designating. And then 2021, and it's dash 268439V1 SIGAL core PDF. This is the one that everybody refers to. And if they don't give you a link to where they got the information from, it's from there. Now, by the time you see this video, they may have updated it. They may have had it peer-reviewed. They may have more data. There may be more studies. When I type in Delta immunity Omicron, which are the only keywords you need and the ones they suggest to look it up for further lookup, I can't find anybody doing a similar study. That's not an example of people suppressing the truth or anything. That means that other people are working on the studies and haven't finished them yet. And until they're finished, you shouldn't take this as advice, including what I'm saying. And you definitely shouldn't listen to people who, if you look up their history, you find out that they're anti-vaxxers, who are telling you to do something that may kill you. Again, getting Omicron to get an immunity is much more dangerous than getting the damn vaccine. If the vaccine's available, go through the whole procedure and get your vaccinations. The life expectancy for having the vaccine is much better than getting the damn disease. And again, emphasis added, everybody telling you that the vaccine is dangerous, I guarantee you none of them will provide any evidence, data, or anything. Meanwhile, again, if you're basing it on this Omicron idea, Omicron infection being a vaccine alternative idea, again, this is based on 13 people, and oops, everybody keeps forgetting to mention that over half of them were already vaccinated, so it doesn't make any sense to do that. The reason they did the study that way, by the way, is that everybody in the area had already been infected with Delta, so maybe they gained an immunity, temporary as it might be, because they just got infected with Delta but didn't know it. And, again, they couldn't find enough people who were unvaccinated to do the experiment on, because everybody's trying to get the vaccine as fast as possible because they don't want to drop dead. Gee, a bunch of people are sane in other countries, and in this country have people who treat it as a sign of ideological, political, nay, religious purity to refuse to get a vaccine, and then will tell you to your face, I'm not getting a vaccine because I want to make sure you get it. That's the kind of American I want to deal with. That's exactly the sign of sanity that you should be emulating, right? Or maybe it's a bunch of people who are doing this because they're fucking real-world trolls at best and at worst. Maybe they're just in favor of thinning the herd. Funny thing is, it's backfiring on them. Again, all this shows is that getting vaccinated kept you from getting sick from a disease you got vaccinated against at least 7 out of 13 times there. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with it.